Let me start firstly with a little bit of an agenda and an overview and an introduction. My name's Matt Patterson. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Kinetics, and I often come on these sessions. It's a great way for us to share some of the best practice, some of the ideas and some of the learnings that we have around security in particular. And I've got a guest with me today who's probably needs no introduction, but Bill Lunam, who's our Chief Technology Officer and general in the fight against cyber warfare, is here to share some of those fantastic insights that he has on the cyber war from the front line. I'd also then like to go over with everyone some areas where Kinetics can help you wage that war and make sure that you're prepared and make sure that you're actually ready to face with the challenges that the industry is dealing with right now. So a little bit of housekeeping. I've already said this session will be recorded, and what we'll do is we'll save it as an MP4 and put it in the chat after this session. Could you please mute your microphones as you come on board? You can certainly unmute them when it comes to questions and answers at the end of the session. And could I could ask you to feel free to actually use the chat function within Teams. If you've got any questions as we go, enter them in the chat, and Juliet has kindly offered to sort of triage those and deal with them either in the chat, or she'll raise them as questions during the session. I'll also post a copy of the two presentations that are part of what we're talking about today. So again, it's a learning tool that you guys can actually distribute to your teams and impart that information across your organizations. And that's really what this is all about. It's basically informing and giving you an opportunity to learn some things, hopefully, and also then be able to pass those on to your colleagues. So I might just start with a sort of slide which asks the question, what can you do to protect your business? And this one is from cert.government.nz. And you may recall in December last year, we actually had a change to the privacy regulations, which meant that cyber breaches are required to be notified. And CERT-NZ have actually given some really good guidelines. It would be one of my key recommendations, particularly because it has a New Zealand focus, for you to have a look at that cert.gov.nz site. And they talk about fundamentals of making sure that you are protected. Back up your data, keep your operating systems up to date, install antivirus, choose unique passwords, etc., etc. Are all things that Kinetics have been espounding for many, many years. And in fact, if you're a managed service customer of Kinetics, you are getting covered by most of these things anyway. But when it comes down to it, that's only the tip of the iceberg when you're talking about the current state of cybersecurity and the war that we're raging against hackers internationally. Kinetics sort of takes it to an extra level. We believe that everyone at Kinetics is focused on security. And why do we believe that? Well, we put a huge amount of focus on not only how we respond to our external clients, but how we actually manage our internal focus clients. So that's our peers, our colleagues within the organization. From an external perspective, we've got a whole range of people who actually deliver these services to our clients. So, you've got our NOC team who are doing regular patching and monitoring of antivirus statuses and making sure that those security patches are actually being done in a timely fashion. We've got CTMs out there who are actually giving really good, strong, solid advice on firewall security and how that should be set up, etc., etc. And then we've got our care teams that are delivering our core care services, which include premium care and core fundamentals, and then we layer across it a number of other security layers. But when it comes to things like cyber breaches, the actual P1 incidents that actually happen in our customers, we've actually got a Kinetics virtual cybersecurity team. So this is a group of our best and brightest, the people who have gone through, I suppose, additional levels of certification and training to be, I suppose, thought leaders providing that security leadership on incidents where we have P1s, which are full system outages, any ransomware or denial of service attacks. They've also bring a degree of security specialization so that when we have a major incident like that, we're actually getting the best people on it first time in a really coordinated way. Coordinated from a number of areas. So the communication around those breaches and making sure that there isn't a broader issue, notifying all of our team as to the status of how things are going. The coordination of the incident response. So these things specifically related to cyber breaches actually have to be coordinated really well so you don't waste time and energy running down rabbit holes. And then the learnings and the skills buildings that come out of those things are really key. And then when you flip it to our internal client focus, this is on how we as a business actually deal with security issues, with privacy issues, and the governance around those things. We've got a regular meeting cadence for our internal privacy and security squad. And that's representatives from all the business units across Kinetics. And we discuss privacy and security recommendations. We look at the learnings and the education that we've got going out across all of our staff. And we also look at it from the perspective of compliance and notifications. And what that's really helps us with is that we've got people within the business focusing on the things that are strategically important to our business, and they report back regularly to our SLT. And I mentioned Bill because Bill is actually the leader of that Kinetics Privacy and Security Squad, and he basically ensures that those things are being discussed regularly. We have the opportunities for those learnings, and we leverage off the back of that. So without further ado, it's probably appropriate for me now to introduce the General himself, Bill, to talk us through some of those cyber war stories, after which I'll then pick up on how we can help you specifically in addressing those issues. Over to you, Bill.
Thank you. I'll just share my screen. And hopefully you can all see that.
Yes, we can.
All right. Okay. And so I said to Matt that I wanted to try something a little bit different in this webinar. I will say he rather hopefully suggested that be practicing it. What I am going to do is I'm not going to do a deep dive into any of these incidences. We could be here for a long time, and technically a lot of this is boring, so I'm going to try and skip over them quickly, but to give some advice along the way about what you can do. So I'm going to start with email fraud. It's still probably the most common fraud that we see. And Matt, before you mute yourself, I was just wondering, can we maybe do a gift card for the first person who logged in today?
Oh, absolutely we can, Bill. Yeah, not a problem. Yeah, and I'll sort that out.
That would be that wasn't planned, that Matt would know I was going to say this, but it's a demonstration of probably one of the oldest tricks and one that we still see quite commonly, which is gift card fraud. An example that I've used before, and sorry if you've heard it before, one of our charity clients, member of their admin team, receives an email from the CEO saying they want to give some gift cards to some of the people that have been volunteering for the charity. Could they go out and purchase 5 Amazon gift cards? They did so, sent the CEO sent the CEO the numbers for them. That was the last they heard about it. They had just lost, I don't know how much money, but for a charity, any amount of money is a loss. We still quite commonly see this kind of email spoof, and it takes place in a lot of different formats. Another version of that, whoops, I just get my screens sorted out correctly, of these old-fashioned ones that still take place would be sextortion. I would get a quiet phone call from somebody every couple of months to go, Bill, my PC's been hacked. I've received this email. Somebody's got videos of me and they're threatening to release them onto the internet. Look, 99.99% of these are all fakes. All it needs to do this, all you need to do this is the email address you're going to send it to, and you purchase some old passwords off of the internet. You send them that password as proof that you've had access to their PC. Normally you haven't. And hopefully they're going to pay you some money. It's also not uncommon for people to just try some of the top 10 passwords, because there's a pretty good chance that if you emailed 1,000 people using one of the top 10 used passwords, one of them has used it and is going to freak out. Neither of these hacks are particularly sophisticated. You really only need to know two things: the email address you're going to send it to and an email address that you want them to reply to. That's not hard at all hard to figure out. Interesting enough, on the sextortion one, if you were to search that on the internet, you'd find this guy is one of the first ones to come up. He offers to fix the problem that doesn't really exist for you for $350 US. And he kindly on his website says, hey, after you've sent me the money, you might get a delay before I get back to you. I'm probably going to be on a plane or something, undoubtedly jetting off to spend all the money for the people who have now just been scammed twice. So I said this kind of thing is really quite easy to do. All I need to know is the CEO, the address I'm going to send from, and the address I'm going to send to. To explain that, that's a little bit like an envelope. Email's not much different to an old envelope. I can put any address on the front and any address on the back. I could even put in there a stamped addressed envelope for you to return to. Let's say I've got a PO box. I could write on that any name I want in the PO box. You'd reply back. This isn't particularly hard. Down the side here, I've given you two videos you could actually watch how to do this. If you're not a really technical person, the middle one is a website that will do these spoofed emails for you. Not too hard to protect from. Actually, I'll rephrase that. Some of the levels of protection that you need. First one, DMARC, DKIM, SPF, don't worry too much about that. What this really about is protecting your own brand. Now, I've seen the people joining in. I will use a little story here that I had totally forgotten about, but demonstrates how important this is. DMARC is a way that you tell other people how to handle your email. So you can say, if my email does not come from one of these particular places, it's a fake, reject it. We actually set that up for somebody, and then they made us overwrite it because the people who were emailing them, which was coming out of Switzerland, a large international insurance company, I think it was, somebody from there wasn't going through the correct channels. And therefore, when it hit the firm in New Zealand, they looked at the DMARC DKIM that had been set up by the sending company's IT people, who were saying, if it doesn't come through these channels, reject it. And we were rejecting it. We're told that's an important email, it must come through. And I've often wondered, what if it was a fraud? Who would be responsible then? Because it's been deliberately let through, even though the sender's IT company is saying, don't trust this. Mail scrubbing, look, you're probably all familiar with that. That's a rule-based system to have a look at the emails as they come in, try and identify links on them that are possibly being faked. Whaling protection, this is one that we offer with our KARE email scrubbing service. So we identify key people in the organization, and if an email comes from outside that claims to be that person, it's going to flag it as being a whaling email. Mail flow rules, this is an interesting one. We're talking about this right now. We can, for you, tag every email that comes externally and say this email has come externally. You possibly see those yourself from other from other companies when you're emailing them and your email comes back and you look down through the string and it's saying, warning, this is an external email. I think if you're doing that to every email, people will just start to ignore it. Which takes me probably to one of the key things with these sorts of hacks is actually user awareness, phishing testing, e-learning, presentation. A good one, news posts and internal teams ones, keep the conversation going internally about what's happening. We're actually in the process of changing our own phishing that we offer to clients. we're moving to a system that hooks into a large international provider of email scanning, and they're taking the latest sort of hacks and pre-packaging them for us so that we can actually do email phishing that is based on what's happening out there in the real world. But what actually happens if somebody gets into your email box, or your supplier's email box, your client's email box? Most common way that this happens is through somebody handing away their credentials. This is becoming, I guess, more of a risk as we start to have more reuse of accounts. You know, for example, these days, you probably even Kinetics might even ask you to do this. Say, hey, do you want this document? Please sign in to get it. And you can use your Office 365 account. So perhaps becomes more likely that we're going to give away our details on these accounts, which produces this age-old problem security has, which is convenience compared to security. Here's an interesting story on this. This is obviously a fake. It's a joke email box, claims to be Putin's email box. Wasn't really a joke for somebody we know. We were visiting a very large industry organization. If I told you their name, you would recognize it instantly. And one of their C-level execs was telling us how their internal IT had just discovered that for 6 months, every email he sent and received had been forwarded off to an email account called vputin@gmail.com for 6 months. Imagine this was pre the Privacy Act, so I think it was mid last year or the year before. Imagine if that happened to you today, how many people you would have to go and inform about some detail that perhaps had been leaked. So it was an absolute stunner for us to hear about this. Now, you might wonder how common this sort of thing is. It's certainly something that people attempt to do a lot, because once somebody is inside your email box, they have a lot of time. So those first scams I spoke about, no, they don't require a lot of information or skills. I just need to know the name and email address of somebody in accounts, the name of who the CEO is. These things are quite easy to find out on the internet, and be able to spoof an email. Like I said, I've already shown you a tool that does that. To give another example of that, we had one of our accounts person received an email from our CEO, Andrew Hunt, asking about about transferring some money. Now, she was pretty good. She was immediately suspicious because that email went to her home email address, one that Andrew wouldn't even have. So that's somebody trying to bypass our own systems. And this example here that I want to talk about was another one of our clients who is an importer. And one of their key staff, operations manager, actually left. And I think he'd been there maybe about 13 years. So they made a decision at that time that they wanted to be able to access his email box and check it all the time, right? Because he was a very vital person to the company. A lot of people would have been communicating with him. So passwords were changed, etc., and access was given to some key staff who were logging in every day and seeing what was going on. What happened, of course, was after a month or two, they stopped. But nobody ever said we've stopped. And a couple of years later, we were deploying better security for them. And as we did so, we identified that this particular mailbox was still there and was being accessed from people out of South America and out of Asia. Now, there had been no fraud committed there. We could say that they had a stroke of luck, because perhaps that mailbox at that point was too old. But it does tell us that actually, because we're seeing this from multiple places, that the details of how to access that mailbox had been taken and probably sold on the internet, because we've got multiple people accessing it. You know, and the client was lucky, but really, you've got to be lucky every day. Those hackers really only have to be lucky once. This one, rather sad to say, is a story about hackers being lucky. So another company that I know of that are importers, they received an invoice So it was for 350,000 US dollars. Not uncommon for them. They deal with a lot of people out of China. Shortly after that, they received the email saying, we want to change the bank details that you're paying this to. They followed process. So they checked the website, confirmed the phone number to call. They ring the phone number, they talk to the people, confirm the bank account change. It was a total fake. The invoice was real. The email requesting the change of bank accounts was a fake. And what they'd done was to go to the website, they clicked on the link in the email, and that took them to a fake website with a fake phone number. They had cyber insurance. The cyber insurance paid out in New Zealand dollars, $250,000. So they're still 100,000 US dollars short from this. Now, this is a Chinese company. Even if we had been able to prove, and I will say that this is somebody I know, not a client of Kinetics, so I can't say we, but even if there had been proof, and it's an interesting idea to say, well, it was the other company that got hacked, who would be responsible for this? And actually, does it even matter what you could prove when that company's in China? In the end, they had to pay up, and after that, I will say they had problems with their insurance company, didn't want to pay out any money at first. There was a long argument about it. And these days you'll find that cyber insurance, there's a number of insurance companies that won't pay out on cyber, that won't even do cyber insurance anymore. Partly because those companies themselves, big reinsurers in the US, have been hacked. Well, some things you can do. Multi-factor authentication. You will have heard lots about it. It is the cure for everything. I wish so. A lot of people complain that it causes disruption, which is kind of the point of multi-factor authentication. It's supposed to be that other thing that says, is this real? We do get asked to bypass it quite regularly. And you know, if I was to put my real security hat on, every time we do, to make things a little bit more convenient, perhaps we just leave a little hole there. And as companies, we all need to make that decision about risk or not. The other most common one, geofencing, sounds good. We're going to say nobody can access who's coming from, well, actually right now in lockdown, for a lot of us who are only New Zealand based, you could say no access to emails from anywhere other than New Zealand, which we happen to know causes a problem, because if you're flying on one of those internal flights that has Wi-Fi, the IP addresses associated with those are based in England. So they get blocked. You'll see shortly another example of where that could be a problem. We also, as an example, another example of that, during one of the lockdowns in Australia, one of our sister companies in Australia, one of their clients was working from home, got the notification, assumed it was him, so he accepted, let it in. So Australian company, he had just been hacked out of New Zealand. So geofencing may be a good idea, but certainly not a cure-all for everyone. Password vaults, I do really recommend this. If you are internal IT, if your company has internal IT, what's the password solution you have provided them? In fact, I would say every company should be supplying a password solution to any IT people, any financial people, all the key people in their organization. Actually, I would, if I had it my way, I'd say give a password vault to everybody in your organization. If I use the example of that attempted hack with us, you know, people are targeting your business, but trying to go through your staff's private accounts to do that. Making sure your staff is secure, really important. Confirmation of a payment process. You know, we should all have this, but and I'm sure we all do. But we all get a little bit lazy, and you know, I use the gift card scam. Those sorts of things can be quite successful because they are smaller amounts. You know, by the time you move away from those simple frauds into the hacking of a mailbox, you're going from hundreds or thousands of dollars to tens, or from $100 or $1,000 to tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands. Making sure you have good processes and following them, very important. This slide I'm just going to jump past really quickly, because what I wanted to demonstrate was that this is real. People are having a crack, and these IP addresses down one side with the countries, that was an example I got of just attempts on our firewall here at Kinetics in one day last week. But after getting that, we had a real slamming on the weekend. This particular slide, okay, it says it's for a whole month, and it's telling you the most common attempts IP addresses on our network. But literally those top couple, they all happened Saturday night, Sunday morning here at Kinetics. The top address, and I spoke about geofencing, was from Finland. So on Saturday night, somebody had close enough to 700 attempts at getting through our firewall from Finland. Go figure. They were literally having a look for a whole series of weaknesses across all sorts of ports, just hammering us, looking for that, like I said before, for that one opportunity for them to be lucky, whereas we have to be lucky every time. And this morning I get this every day on what's happening around the world. There was some news. I don't know if you've heard of T-Mobile. They're claimed to be America's largest carrier of mobiles. They got hacked. The claims range from, they say 40 million. The guy who hacks them says 100 million passwords that were stolen. And they got in, it's claimed this guy got in through brute force, which is that top hack you see attempting on our network. Firewalls, though, relatively sophisticated hacks. Some of the ones to get into a mailbox, not so sophisticated. You don't need quite as many tools. This slide is an example of attempts over a period of a week to get into one mailbox. This is just one mailbox. If you can see that, attempts from Texas, Sao Paulo, Mumbai, Lagos, Milan. There's people all around the world going, is there some easy money out there? I will give this a crack. So they, my point is, this is real. You don't, as a company, you don't need to be special before these people are having a crack at you. I've said that some of these are more sophisticated than others. Yes, and when anything's hard, there's people who are out there who want to make it easy for you. This list on the left-hand side, these are all ransomware type products that you can go out and purchase off the dark web yourself. Some of these will come with training, support, community support to help you. If you can read on the right hand side, this is actually the requirements for one of these. Well, this is what they say you need to be able to do before they will let you have access, and they can even be picky about who their clients are. Number 4 on there, we do not accept English speaking users in this software. Oops. To give you an idea of how easy they make this for people. Raccoon Stealer, this is one you can get off the dark web. They have already gone out and they've put together a list of sites where they've got credentials to get you in. They make available to you the software and the skills and the training to then move around that network and make your decisions about how you're going to attack the network. And for this, they have a profit sharing scheme with you. So if you've got a few hours during lockdown, here's some easy money to make. This is exactly what a lot of other people are doing around the world. Now, here's a hot hack for you. This is one that I have not seen in New Zealand currently. It's again not that sophisticated, but certainly proving to be, I understand, very effective overseas. It's a CV or a job hack. I say a hack because it's not really a hack, it's social engineering. They will reach out to people. Normally, the first contact is through LinkedIn or an email, and they're targeting technical people. And they're either saying, I'm looking for a job, or they're offering a job. If they get a response, and then they're going to take that to the next level, they're going to actually have a Zoom phone call. So people, apparently they will take people through a fake interview. Or they'll give them a call and have a conversation about the job offer that they have or the job that they're looking for. They're just going to build that trust. Not a lot of time put into this at this point. Then they send the CV or the position description. By that time, the person on the other end is going to open that email. And in this particular hack, what they want all the time is they're after access to the person's computer, because from that computer, they're going to leverage access across the network. The FBI and has put out a particular warning about this hack being quite common right now. We also recently had an example which was an interesting one. It was a version of an old one. Please click on this voicemail that you have. Only in this case, when you clicked on it, there was no payload, of course. It just took you off to a website. And the website plays K-pop type tunes. Actually, no, it wasn't K-pop. It was, and I'm told, I don't know why we remember this fact about it. The website played Katy Perry, Taylor Swift, songs like that. All it
60s show tunes.
60s show tunes. All they wanted to do was to keep people engaged just long enough for the software to deliver the payload down. Now, it did two things. It searched through their browser to look for cached credentials into 365, and then it ran a web app that ran in the background to access 365. It also tried to load a fileless application. So fileless application, basically something that's going to feed off the internet and just run in memory, because your antivirus is probably looking down here to see what's getting written out, whereas this is just sitting in memory. So bypassing the antivirus. Yeah, to give them, allow them access to have the time to be able to put in place a backdoor. It was a difficult one because the music was all legitimate. It was from a ringtone website, so it rolled over quite quickly. The emails came from a reputable source, so they came through Amazon Web Services Gateway from accounts and domains that had been set up on Microsoft Office. And the DMARC I spoke about before, DMARC, these things where, you know, good businesses put out this information about how to receive emails from them. That was all set up correctly. So a whole lot of these checks that you might do to find out if something was legitimate, automated checks, all would have taken place and it would have got through. So that's one of the reasons why having layers of security is absolutely vital. Now, our security team had a look at this. They were able to, although everything was legitimate around how the email came through, you could see from it, you could see a source and you could see a name and domain, and they were able to build some filters that we pushed out across all our KARE for Security clients. And I'm told over the next 3 weeks, a quarter of those clients, we caught that same email source trying to come through. So what can you do to protect yourself against this sort of thing? Well, spoken about AV briefly then. AV is starting to become a little bit old-fashioned. In reality, AV is kind of like a single person sitting on your computer using the knowledge that they have. I have this knowledge, it's in my brain, I'm looking for things that meet that knowledge. The next version of this is called EDR, endpoint detection and response. This makes a lot of use of cloud components, AI, machine learning. So it's more like one person looking at your computer, calling out to a bunch of other people, I found this suspicious thing. What do you think about it? What do you know about it? Let's share that information. We're we've built this into our latest KARE For Security product. I will say you do get more false positives with EDR, and I'll come back to that in a moment. Vulnerability scans. Those guys, when I showed you our firewall having a crack, they were looking for a weakness in our system. The problem with a lot of us, and we have this, is I don't actually, and you probably have this, is I don't actually have control in a way over a lot of my systems. So I run software that I have to patch and update, and I have to rely that the people who are giving me those patches, that they've done their job, that they're secure. And it would be very easy for a developer to take a bit of code from somewhere, because they're just like the rest of us. Oh, Google that. And then put it into something and inadvertently add a weakness into that product. So having vulnerability scans that on a regular basis are looking both externally into your network and internally across your network, looking for these known and documented vulnerabilities, very important. Matt's already mentioned, patching. So it's amazing a number of the hacks that take place where people would be protected if they just patched properly. We in our patching, we also include third parties because, so by that I mean the common applications, Adobe, as an example. We have about 20 or 30 of those that we include in our patching. Zoom would be a good example these days, because they are common, they're targets for hackers. One of the big conversations these days is a thing called zero trust. Having zero trust of applications. In other words, unless we know that is good, don't let it run. If I have my security hat on, I'm going to go, yeah, zero trust. You can imagine how well that goes down when somebody has some application updates in the background and it won't run for them because it's not yet been approved. Look at something that we're moving towards and figuring out how we can make more available to clients, and that will be coming down the road. Password vaults, look, I've already mentioned those. Once again, if you're not supplying a good password system to your finance department, to all your key staff, then you're just leaving yourself exposed. I'm reluctant to use the word here, but certainly I've got some friends who are IT admins, and when I sit down with them privately, I say, if you're not doing this, this is almost neglect these days. DNS scrubbing. We've built that into our service, DNS scrubbing. So another check every time your PC goes to connect to something on the internet, the URL it's going to is checked against a database in the first place, a database of known bad sites, because these sites hackers can run them up tens and thousands of them in an hour. It's all automated. We've recently just, again, changed the product that we're using. Product that we were using was probably the best choice when we took it, but they weren't developing enough. They hadn't started making good use of AI. So we've moved that product across. Look, I've spoken about passwords a few times. We all struggle with passwords. We've all developed coping mechanisms for passwords. I've suggested, that everybody should have a tool for it. This is an example of the tool that we use. What I really like about this tool is it overcomes the problem of being forced to share a password. So I'm going to use the example of our admin department. They have a number of logins that they all have to use the one login, because the provider of the application only gives you one login. A lot of these are cloud services. So in that scenario, they would have a list, and they would have a password which is kind of easy enough to be able to write down or remember. So when we moved to having a proper password application that allows sharing of passwords, we were able to move away from passwords that they could type to passwords that are long and complex, and you have to copy. But even more than that, because they're stored in one place and they don't even have to copy, it will automatically put them into the login if they set it up that way. We now have somebody who can go in and just change them all every 3 months. Go and log in, new password. They don't have to tell everybody else. The rest don't need to know. The system also allows us to take the MFA that these days we all run on our phones. Because this is shared, that's really hard when you've got 3 people need to use one account. So we can actually put that code into the password application. So now they've got MFA. And the final part of that is when somebody leaves, we can actually easily run a report and go, so what passwords does that person know? Which ones are we worried about that maybe we should be changing? Because this is, I'm not going to quote an exact figure here. I was party of a webinar on password managers recently. And the suppliers there said something, and I didn't remember it because I thought that's got to be an exaggeration. But vaguely from memory, they claimed that surveys had found, now it was either a third or a half or 2/3 of all people will try and access a system after they've left their job. And you go, well, is that true or not? Well, it's been a long time since I've left a job, so I can't speak for myself. But I see people who've worked here do it. I had yesterday an attempt by, we know of somebody who's left one of our clients attempting to log into a system. So it does take place. It could just be curiosity. Did they remember this? Now, have they gone and changed this? Could be malicious. I don't know. Having a proper password manager, being able to go in and see what people know, manage these things, absolutely vital. Now, we actually have question and answer at the end of this. And so I'm going to now pass it back to Matt.
No problem, Bill. Thank you for that. Let me just share my screen now, and I'm hoping you can, let's see. Can you now see that?
Yep.
Okay. Hey, Bill, look, thank you for sharing those war stories. There's some pretty scary stuff in there. You're probably listening to what Bill has been saying and saying, oh, I can recall a time that might have happened, or I can recognize how easily that could happen. And you know, it's a little bit scary, but the objective of this session is not for you to be scared. It's for you to be informed. Okay. It's really important that you recognize that you know, information is the power here. And the things that I picked up from what Bill was saying was that, you know, it's not a one-shot pony here. We've got to have layers. We've got to have multiple layers of protection to be able to, you know, protect our environments. And that's working either yourself or working with organizations like Kinetics to help you do that. The other key thing that I picked up from what Bill said is that it only takes the hacker one time to be lucky. Right? If they're continuing to try, we've really got to think about how we actually protect our environments. And I'm just going to cover now with you some of the things that we can do to help protect you. And it actually starts with a framework. The NIST cybersecurity framework is the framework that Kinetics uses. That's National Institute of Standards and Technology, and that's out of the States. And we have a number of our vendors that actually subscribe to this as well. The key things focusing around, you know, identify what those threats and vulnerabilities are, protect and educate your people, just reiterating what Bill said previously, detect by understanding the targets and the methods that will be used, and then have a response plan and have a recovery plan. How do you deal with the incident as it happens, and then how do you recover it post the incident itself? Now, these are really important things to understand and learn from. I will just move on to the next slide, which actually talks about Kinetics managed and professional services. So most of the people on the call would rely on Kinetics to keep the IT lights on. It's really important that we are providing that base level IT support. And from our premium care and core fundamentals, there's a layer of security that we actually also have in the delivery of those services. But we layer on top of that some professional services, which include our advisory services and IT management, or particularly IT management as a service, and CISO, which is a new offering, which I'll talk about a little bit later. And then we look at the way in which those managed security layers come into play. So in this table, what you see is pretty much all of our offerings in the security space, including our managed services. The first two columns there are Ready Reaction, which is our base level of managed service. And we actually call that layer 0 because it actually doesn't give any managed security on behalf of the clients that use it. We really are saying to our clients today that the minimum level that you have to be across your entire enterprise is either core fundamentals or premium care. And as you've heard from the threats that are actually coming through every single day, wouldn't be right if we weren't actually making you aware of the fact that you should have some form of security layer. And our first layer of security over and above core fundamentals and premium care is KARE For Security 1. And that lays over the top of the base managed service that we have a number of things which are going to proactively prevent attacks from happening and being able to monitor and respond to those things. Most recently, though, we've recognized that there's a number of areas that aren't being covered by KARE For Security 1, and we've introduced KARE For Security 2, which is an overlay of layer 2 to get you to layer 3. It gives you everything that KARE For Security 1 offers, plus those things that Bill was mentioning: EDR, shadow IT protection, the password vault, which is a key one, data link protection, breach activity status, and deep vulnerability scanning. Now, I mentioned the password vault is available in KARE For Security 2, but talk to your account manager. We can actually sell the password vault by itself as well, right? So if you're wanting some sort of password protection and security across your business, that's a great offering. So let me just look at those layers. How do they actually stack up, and what do they look like to you as our customer? So starting with that IT support, and then layering over the top of that premium care and core fundamentals, those security layers, which gives you the antivirus, the monitoring, and the backups. And then the first layer, which I showed you before, which is KARE For Security 2, KARE For Security 1, should I say, and then KARE For Security 2, which is our new offering. Over and above that, those managed security layers, we've also got a cybersecurity review, which is actually a consulting exercise, which is run by our Cambium team. And I'll take you through the detail of what that offers. And then the final thing that I wanted to mention today, which is, I suppose, that final layer of professional services over and above our core managed services, is the Virtual Chief Information Security Officer, or CISO. And this is a brand new offering that we've developed in Cambium to overlay our engagements that might just have a managed service component, but it also may have IT Manager as a service if you're a customer who uses that. So what does that look like? It actually looks like KARE For Security 1. It's about education, making sure that all of your staff are actually educated on the types of things that we're actually talking about today. What do they need to be aware of? What are the biggest elements of risks? What should they proactively look out for? We actually then do some proactive phishing tests. You know, it's like a real fire drill. It's actually looking at the ways in which people send malicious emails. How do you respond to them? How do you identify them? Are you aware of them, or do you just blindly go and click on the link that is associated with that? We also provide in KARE For Security 1 preventing access to dodgy websites and making sure that the people aren't actually going to where could create malicious intent. And then attachments, what are we doing around ensuring email safety and make sure that all of the attachments are actually being screened before they actually get to your desktop? And then deep scan, the monitor protection to give you an enhanced layer of antivirus protection. Now, KARE For Security 1 has been in place for nearly 2 years now, Bill, I think it is. We recognized about 6 months ago that with the new levels of threats and scans, we had to introduce a new layer. Let me just finish off with KARE For Security. We always recommend KARE For Security 1 is done in conjunction with either core fundamentals, as I said, and premium care. And this gives you a really cost-effective way of not only protecting your servers, your desktops, but also your people in the case of the KARE for Security layer. You would expect us to take care of all this stuff in the background. All of the tools that we use are going to give you these specific elements. Leave that to us to manage and monitor on your behalf. But when we talk about KARE for Security 2, we then start overlaying things like the password vault protection, a great tool which Bill showed in his previous slides, the endpoint detection and response. Now, this is really science fiction stuff. When you talk about AI, this is actually a tool that learns as it goes, and it picks out patterns of behavior and actually analyzes to see whether it sees that within your environment. And that's the thing that actually raises the red warning flag for us to actually investigate and follow through on. So fantastic piece of technology. You've got to scan more. So KARE for Security gives you what we call breach activity scanning, daily scan, monthly network scan, and the deep vulnerability scan. I'm not going to go into it here. I would ask you, if you're wanting to know more detail about each of these things, you can talk to your account manager and we can take you through it. And then there's the policy side of things. What are the things that you can put in place around data leakage and apply some policies and protection to your business? And then there's also this final component here, which says Shadow IT Tracker. Now, this is particularly relevant today. How many times do you see your staff or your management or your SLT downloading this app, that app? Oh, that looks good. I've seen that in Teams. I might actually sign up to that. These applications are what we call shadow IT because they don't have the visibility of the people who are, in most cases, managing your IT environment. And when those things creep in, they creep in to create areas of vulnerability in your business that you don't want. So the point of this is to give visibility of that shadow IT so you can do something about it. So that's the managed security layers that we can offer. There's some things that we can actually do if you subscribe to KARE for Security 1 and KARE for Security 2, or if for that matter you're a premium KARE customer, you would be familiar with the fact that we do an annual flight plan. So sign up to our security layered managed services and you'll get an annual flight plan. And this is really key when you're talking about, how often do you strategically look at what your business is focusing on? How is it reacting to external environments? What are the changes we're going to actually have to have off the back of this recent lockdown? Are there things that we need to do to give us readiness? So it's about doing a comprehensive review of your goals, your business goals, and we sit alongside you and reimagine what might be possible if actually IT was aligned to that business strategy, not the other way around. We also then give you an opportunity to remap what those processes look like and give you a roadmap to actually deliver on those over time. And it usually looks like a 6, 12, 24-month view of the future to make sure that you're actually aligning your resources to where it's important that the business thinks that they should be. The next individual standalone offer that we actually have is this virtual Chief Information Security Officer, or vCISO. Now, this is brand new, and we've got a number of our clients who use a similar service called IT Manager as a service, but think of this as specifically focused on security and privacy. So I mentioned to you that virtual security squad that Bill is the general of, and he has all the experience and the knowledge to be able to run that internally for our business. If you're wondering how you can actually address the issues that I mentioned here, management, communication, vendor app and license management, security roadmap, cybersecurity, governance and policy, and information assets through a security lens, we can actually help you by providing a part-time resource, which is actually designed to actually act as your vCISO within your enterprise and make sure all of those things are actually ticked off and covered as you go. So just a taster, I thought I'd give you there for the vCISO. Again, if you're interested in finding out more about this, please talk to your account manager. And then finally, the other thing that I mentioned in those professional services that we can do to help you, to protect you from, those broad range of cyber risks in your business, we can actually do a cybersecurity review. And that's where we actually sit down and have a structured interview process where we go through step by step to understand what your current state is. We actually record all of your vulnerabilities and the threats that exist. So think back to that NIST framework. It says identify what all those risks and vulnerabilities are, write them down, basically make sure that you've actually got a way to address them. And then we write a recommendations paper, which actually is a document that you can take to your board, that you can take to your management team to show you the way forward of the things that are highest priority for you to focus on. Today, we've actually got a bit of an offer on the cyber security review, which is $1,500. And that actually gives you the full interview process, asking those questions, making the recommendations and understanding what those risks and issues are, and then writing of a document to actually give you that roadmap of how to address it. So that's pretty much it. We're actually coming up to 5 minutes before the end of the finished session. There's a couple of things that I just want to leave with you as takeaways. This final page, which obviously is included in the PowerPoint decks, which I'll forward through to you, actually just has some links. And the most important one to actually remember is actually our website, because we regularly update these things. You would be familiar with the fact that Andrew is really diligent and really good at sending out regular newsletters, which are really topical and pertinent. In fact, he sent out the latest COVID-19 update on the morning before the announcement was we were going into lockdown. So, you know, he's a little bit prophetic when it comes to those sorts of things, which is really good to know, a great resource for you. I will also say we've actually just written another document, which is basically a white paper for your executive, looking at some of the key trends in security and the awareness that you have to have, and actually talks you through how you would approach that. Because you've all attended today's webinar, I'm actually going to include that in the chat session as well, so you have it as a takeaway. So that's pretty much it. I will just ask everyone if there is any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask them now.
Well, so we're waiting for that. It's interesting. I see that we actually had an internal alert this morning about a phishing campaign against us, claiming to be from Andrew Hunt.
Wow.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Except the email asks people, so what does it say? Hello, and the person's name. Do you have a moment? I'm tied up in a conference call meeting and there's something I need you to take care of requiring swift action. Kindly reply with your WhatsApp app number. So I think the two clues there is he goes kindly. Andrew would never say that. He'd say now. And the other is I don't think Andrew would is a user of WhatsApp. Oh, sorry, WhatsApp.
Yeah, good call. Good call,
yeah,
Bill.
that's kind of timely. That was taking place this morning about the time that we're getting ready for this webinar.
Good stuff. So Juliet, is there any questions from the floor, or is there actually any questions from the attendees?
We don't have any questions at the moment.
All right then. Look, I'm going to finish right on time then. So let me say thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules. We've really enjoyed having this discussion with you. Thank you, Bill, for providing that insight as to what happens in the real world. Really appreciate that and it's a great resource for our customers. Thank you all. Enjoy your day. Cheers.